Workflow Management. Step 1. Create a workflow. Workflow. As an enterprise matures in its approach to enterprise architecture, EA activities become much more than mere data gathering and storage. The M in EAM turns from modeling into management, encompassing classic management processes involving synthesis of data from different sources, evaluation of information in order to make decisions, and then communication of decisions taken to those who they affect. By establishing workflows that determine the players, tasks, and rules of execution for these activities, users can leverage the full potential of the best practice methodology that is the foundation of planningIT. Here we see a concept for a workflow for project proposal design. By anchoring the individual activities in a set process and ensuring that all relevant stakeholders are involved, workflows help establish EA in the organization and support collaboration. Workflow. Here is an example of a workflow for demand management. A demand for an enhancement to an existing application is submitted by a business analyst. The enterprise architect analyzes and describes the demand as to its impact on the architecture and passes it back to the business analyst for validation. Once validated, the application's product manager makes a rough cost assessment. If it is less than 50,000 euros, the workflow routes it to a standard release project. In this case, the application release manager assigns a budget item and the demand is approved. If the assessed cost is higher than 50,000 euros, the workflow routes the demand through to the project manager for a design proposal. This is performed in a separate workflow initiated by the project manager. Workflow. Once completed, the proposal is sent to the project portfolio board for approval. Workflow diagram. planningIT also provides workflow diagrams for easy design and viewing of workflows. Workflow diagrams visualize workflow definitions in easily understood representations. Classic workflow diagram elements such as swim lanes, event and task boxes, and sequence flows clearly depict the actions, decision points, and players involved in a workflow. Conditions and other parameters can be included in a workflow diagram. Diagrams are directly related to the respective template descriptions so that a change in either is reflected in both forms of representation. Step 2. Perform the workflow. Workflows. Workflow functions are found in the Collaboration section of planningIT. Under My Workflows, end users find the workflows they own. Under My Workflow Activities, end users find the workflows in which they're assigned the next step. Workflow Activities. The Workflow Activity list displays the activities waiting on action by the user. It shows the current and the previous steps, as well as when the workflow was received. By clicking on the Perform button, the user initiates the selected step for execution. The user can also refuse a workflow step by clicking on the Refuse button. The workflow step will then automatically be routed to the step defined in the Refuse step field of the step description. Wizards. planningIT's workflow functionality lets users create wizard-driven interfaces, or forms, to display only the information necessary for completing that particular task. Using wizards for data entry aligns users in a uniform methodology and vocabulary and helps establish IT planning processes in the organization. A choice of predefined input values and plausibility checks ensures integrity of entered information. Workflow Gateway. One of the steps in our demand management workflow stipulated that if the assessed cost of the demand is greater than 50,000 euros, a project proposal must be assigned before moving on to the next step. In this case, the estimated cost is greater than 50,000 euros, and the user did not assign a project proposal. The workflow step cannot be completed until the prerequisite is fulfilled. Once this is done, an X will appear in the Ready column, and the user can confirm completion of the step by clicking the Complete button. The workflow is passed on to the next person in the workflow. Delegate the workflow step. The user can also delegate a workflow step if he or she cannot perform it. In clicking on the Delegate button, the user is presented with a window for entering the person the workflow step should be delegated to, and a comment for that person. If the user doesn't know who to delegate the workflow step to, he or she can just refuse it. Step 3. Manage workflows. Workflows. In the My Workflows list, the user sees all of the workflows he or she owns. Using this list, workflow owners can track and coordinate the activities of the various stakeholder contributions to the IT planning process. The workflow owner can suspend or reassign a workflow if necessary. From this page, the user can also start new workflows from the templates he or she is authorized to use. By clicking on the Create Workflow button, the user starts the creation of a new workflow with the selected template. In this case, it is Business Demand Request. Start with a new artifact. Workflow description. Here the workflow owner defines the new demand, which will be called Rework CRM for Regional Support. Workflow initiation. Here we see that the new workflow has been added to the owner's list of running workflows. At the moment, it is only initiated. To start the workflow and send it on to the next person, the user clicks on the Start Workflow button. Workflow profile. Here we see the profile of the new workflow for demand management for the demand New CRM for Regional Support, demand number 117. To analyze the workflow and possibly intervene in how it's running, we need to look at the workflow event trace. Workflow event trace. This page view serves as the central starting point to intervene in the normal flow of workflow activities. The owner can at any time stop or pause the process, as well as advance or return the workflow to a particular task. You can see how each executed phase of the workflow step is recorded: entered, assigned, in progress, performed, exited, confirmed, refused. The workflow owner can use the workflow event trace to analyze the quality of workflows. For example, the time it takes to complete a specific workflow. This history of activities pertaining to workflow execution can be used for audit purposes and to optimize IT planning processes. Thank you for visiting our product tour, Workflow Management.